want to grow your wealth through property and you want to build a big portfolio, it is generally much slower to do that with commercial, unless your business is spitting out millions and millions of dollars year on year. So you generally will start with residential assets. Once your portfolio starts giving you that from an equity point of view, that's when you can start pushing it into commercial, because you just purely invest in the commercial for the cash flow, and then you just continue to use your residential assets to leverage you into commercial assets.
Graham Holm has a bit of a different approach to your methodology.
What Graham does from a mortgage point of view is great. At the end of the day, it's not revolutionary. He teaches people to pay their mortgage off faster. There's a catch though, right?
What makes an 8-figure founder?
It is sales and marketing, that's all I focus on. It is having an offer that works and doubling down on that. Or Mosey's thing, do more of what's working and do it better.
Is property truly the best way to generate wealth?
I would say...
Welcome to Founders Playbook Podcast, the ultimate guide for entrepreneurs to build their empires, increase profits, and become great leaders. I'm your host, Nelson, founder and CEO of Vibes Creative, Australia's leading video podcast agency. Let's get down to business. Welcome back to another episode. Today's legendary guest is a real estate entrepreneur who by the age of 27 managed to build a $35 million property portfolio. He's the founder of Henderson Advocacy, Endeavor Build, and Henderson Develop. Please welcome the legend, Jack Henderson.
Legend, thanks for having me on. Thanks for coming into the office.
It's a pleasure to
you
be
made
here.
The trip up, huh?
Yes, you know how it is. We knew you were flying in for just a couple of days, and we were chatting to your assistant. She's like, "Oh, Jack can't make it to the studio." I told Kyle, "I don't care. Make it happen. We'll go to him. It's all good. Here we are. We get it done." You know exactly how it is.
Thank you,
Jack. How did you manage to build a $35 million property portfolio by the age of 27?
Yeah, mate, well, I guess the simple answer is you start with one, right? Like when I started buying real estate, I bought my first property at 18. I didn't think I'd have a $35 million portfolio, that's for sure. But you obviously start with one property and then you buy two and then you buy three and then your income increases, and, you know, before you know it, the impossible that you, or the thing that I thought was once impossible eventually, you know, ends up becoming a reality, and all of a sudden now it no longer seems like such a big number because I'm looking, you know, further ahead. So it's a progression, right? Like I had a mentor. I've had a lot of mentors, but like one of the main people that I looked up to and got a lot of inspiration and information from, a guy by the name of Chris. He essentially gave me the roadmap and showed me what he had done, and was very public like I am with how I do it and what I do, and I just followed in his footsteps, bro, and here we are.
If you had to build a $35 million portfolio again, how would you do it?
The same way. Nothing's changed, right? Like I only started investing 28 now. I bought my first property at 18, so it was like nine years ago. And I would do it exactly the same way. You know, like it'd be start with the first property. I didn't go to university. I got kicked out of high school. I didn't do a trade or an apprenticeship or anything like that. So I went into the workforce as a labourer in the construction industry. You know, you're obviously from South America. I'm assuming a lot of people, when they come to Australia, they get into like construction or labouring or something like that because it's an easy job and it pays really well. Yeah. That's what I did. And I'd save up my first deposit. I'd take advantage of the first home buyer incentives in whatever state that you live in, and then I would focus on buying the first and then doing what you need to do to get the second. And usually that is, once you get the first one, start then working on increasing your income so you can borrow more money. And then once you earn more money, go back and buy more real estate. And when you buy more real estate, go back and earn more money. And it's just this like constant, journey of like buy more real estate or invest more, whatever you're investing in, and then earn more money so you can invest more.
I'm curious to hear what exactly made you become really focused on getting the money to buy your first property, because being that young, buying your property at 18 and making the kind of money that you were making, right? There's so many distractions back then. If I had the kind of opportunities and money that I'm making now when I was 18, I would have blown it off. Like there was so many things happening, from parties, girls, all these things. Like What exactly made you really stay focused to, I need to build wealth?
There's a few things, right? A few things that weren't done consciously and a few things that were done consciously. So the unconscious things was I've had a girlfriend ever since I've been 17 years old. Not the same girlfriend, but I've had a girlfriend, right? So that sort of limits the amount that you party because you're in a relationship. So I wasn't a big partier, don't get me wrong. I still enjoyed myself. I still went out. I still did shit, but it wasn't like every Friday, Saturday, Sunday I was partying. So that was one of the unconscious things that now I look back on and go, wow, would my life be different now if I didn't have a girlfriend? Would I have traveled more? Would I have wasted more money and all the rest of it? I didn't really travel all that much. I went on a few holidays here and there, but nothing dramatic. I lived at home with my parents, like most 18-year-olds do. Fortunately, I didn't pay board or rent. So I nearly had 100% disposable income. I had no real fixed expenses. I started working when I was 15, which means I didn't have a car, didn't really have anything to spend money on other than things I chose to spend money on. And I mean, I had this like want for money. I always, and I didn't grow up in a poor family. I grew up in a normal Australian family, lived in a normal neighborhood, mum and dad worked normal jobs. But I always wanted what I didn't have. I don't know why. I was a very jealous kid. I always wanted material things. I actually used to lie a lot. I used to tell people I had things that I didn't. And yeah, man, I think from there, it's like, there's different things that drive people, desire, a lack. And for me, it was like, what drove me was a lack of what I didn't have. And that's why I focus so heavily on making money and building wealth from a young age, because that's really what I wanted more than anything.
Is that what still drives you?
To an extent, yeah. Like, fuck, I don't get up every day because I just have this huge passion for, going and stressing myself out every day. Like, people who say they don't work for money are lying, in my eyes. So, yeah, like, I'm doing what I do to make money. If I can make other people lots of money as I'm doing it, that just means my business will become more and more successful. So, it's a win-win. But, other things drive me now. I think that the real big thing that drives me now that didn't drive me when I was younger was, the sense of accomplishment I get when I say I'm going to do something and I actually go and do it. So, and that's in all areas of my life. That's in, my fitness and my running. I'm a big runner. It's obviously in business. It's in personal elements, like, things I do in the community with sort of charity sort of style of work, all that stuff. Like, I like to say things and I like to go and do it. And you get that sense of accomplishment. And then when you know you can do something, like you were just asking, the $35 million portfolio, I know I can build that once. So if I lost it all, I could do it again. But now I've never built a $100 million portfolio, so that's the next goal.
That resonates a lot with me. The lack being a main driver for you to actually want to accomplish great things, because I grew up in a similar kind of position, but in a worse country.
I can imagine, man, like
third world country.
Crazy.
But pretty much,
very dangerous country too, right?
Very dangerous, and just a standard family. And was very lucky that eventually, after being expelled from a school and so on, my family got me in what it would be a better environment, and everyone around me had 10 times more than what we had. And I was always asking, like, why do they have that? Can I get that? No, you can't. And they obviously, we had as well a bit of programming going on in terms of, oh, we can't afford those things. No, tell everyone your dad is poor, all these things, right?
Yeah.
So it was always this feeding into, fuck, one day I will have way more than everyone here. And it's interesting when you see things, and you probably resonate with this, and seeing things in a very long-term perspective. I always tell people, it doesn't matter who's winning today. It's who's going to be still in the battlefield in the next 5 to 10 years.
Exactly right, man. It's very, very true. It's very true. And I've been thinking a lot recently about death, which is very strange. I don't know why. Just there's been a lot of people who I not know personally, but like I've known of, have met, through online, that have died. Like, and when I say a lot, like it's got to be between 10 and 20 people. And I've just been more conscious to it recently, and it's just like I constantly reflect. I'm like, fuck, like one day it's all over, I don't know why it's been coming up so much recently, but it's just it's given me that little bit of fire to be like, people, and me included in this, you sort of live days where you think you're going to live forever. There's like, you sort of have this naivety in your brain, even though you're like, we know we're going to die one day. No one has ever lived forever. You just have this naivety where you're like, oh, maybe it's not going to be me, maybe I'll live forever. So that's another thing. It's like, fuck, I know that there's only one shot at this thing and I want to make it the best shot possible. So
absolutely. It's definitely having that urgency and impatience on your day to day, but just having that patience, I guess, with the long-term vision
100%.
of what you're trying to do.
Knowing where you're going and thinking about the moves that you're making today and how that will either have a positive or negative impact in, 5, 10, 15 years time.
Is property truly the best way to generate wealth?
I would say no. Business is the best way to generate wealth. But business is very hard. Very few people make a lot of money in business, but the people who do make a lot of money. Real estate is the easiest way to make money. You can be anyone, earn any amount of money, have any job, and build a really strong amount of wealth relative to whatever you're earning over a long period of time. So it's not the best way to build wealth, but not everyone has the skills to be able to build wealth the best way, which is business. So it's definitely the easiest way to build wealth for the most amount of people, without a doubt.
Absolutely. And that's something that I was explaining to a few people a few years ago when I realized that my business will give me the biggest returns compared to any asset class. It doesn't matter. If I do the right things for my business, it will give me way more than anything else, right? And then it's what you do with that money.
That's right.
To make sure
business
that
business
creates.
is great for cash flow, right?
Yep.
Most businesses don't actually have an intrinsic value though. Like you probably couldn't sell your business. I couldn't sell my business. No one else would buy it. So it's not an asset that you can actually sell. And things can change, right? So what's worth something today may not be worth something tomorrow from a business point of view, or what works today and is successful today may not be tomorrow. In real estate, it's been the same for as long as mankind has been around, and housing has been around, right? Nothing's changed. It's always been land has been a commodity, and as the population has grown, every single person needs somewhere to live, which means there is a finite amount of resource being real estate, and there is an infinite amount of demand because the population continues to grow. So it's the easiest way to make money for the majority of people.
And touching on that, because you said your business couldn't be sold right now, are you planning on ever selling your businesses? And if so, you're not planning on doing it?
No, not really. And the reason I say that, and I know a lot of people, one of the guys on my advisory board, just sold his company for $180 million, young guy in his early 30s. And the reason I say no, I never plan to sell, is because if you have a really good business that provides you with really good income, really good lifestyle, and you've got a lot of assets outside of your business, why would you ever sell the golden goose? I'm not building a tech company. I'm not building something which, is losing money or not very profitable and will have a huge multiple, and that's why you exit. My business makes me a lot of money and it gives me a very good life, and it's only going to get better and better and better if I continue to get better and better and better. So why would I ever sell that? Doesn't make sense. What am I going to sell it for? 100 million, 200 million, 500 million, and then do what? Start another business, So yeah, as long as you're financially secure, which most of these people who exit out of the business are not financially secure before they sell their business, because they put everything back into their business, back into the business. Like, these guys who sell their tech companies, like there might be a founder of, 2, 3, 4, there might be a shareholder of many because they've raised capital. They might be on a $100,000 salary, or $150,000 salary, or $200,000 salary in their own business. That's worth a significant amount of money, and they're not able to pull out anything of that business. So that's why people exit out of their businesses, is because the only way they're going to be able to get a payday is to exit. I own 100% of my business, so why would I ever sell it? Because it's just going to continue to pay me the better and better I get.
Would you then as well if you have to do things all over again, would you still do it in the same way instead of starting a business with the capital? would you go and buy a property and then start a business? How would you do that?
I wouldn't change anything because at the time of me buying my first property, I knew nothing about business. It wasn't even on my radar. Didn't even know I was going to start a business. So I was an employee, and this is what I was mentioning before. Is like real estate is the easiest way for the majority of people in the world to make money. Because you don't need to be that smart. You can either pay a professional to do it, which is what we do. We are those professionals. Or you can go and do it by yourself. I put out everything I do for all of our clients online, so you follow it, and you can probably do the similar thing. But I didn't know anything about business. So investing in property, growing wealth, making more money got me more interested, and that eventually led me to business. And I just happened to be in the business of the thing that made me money. So I never had this urge to be like, oh, I want to be a business owner. It was just like, I loved property. I made money in property. I had a good story. I then transitioned that into charging people to help them do what I did. And now it's grown into business, and now I love business. So they go hand in hand. I wouldn't have the business if I didn't have the portfolio, and vice versa.
Yeah, they all fit each other, and also gives you a lot of credibility, which is one thing that I always find weird when I say businesses that they sell something that they don't do for their business or for the founder or for the CEO. If I was selling podcasting, and if I don't do podcasting myself, I would feel very weird about it, almost like a scam artist. And I see this happening across everything, which is one thing I love about you, is that you're selling something that you have done successfully for you, right? So you probably have a good mechanism on how to do it.
Yeah,
for other
and
people.
I think Alex Hormozy, I'm not sure if you know Alex Hormozy, but he's a massive digital entrepreneur to me. He has the best model, I believe, which is like, and it's the most simple model, which is like do shit and then talk about it. Do shit and then go tell other people how to do it. You know, like, so all the stuff that I tell clients and teach clients and advise clients on and buy properties and all the rest of it, it's just stuff that I personally do. Like, I've done more than every single one of my clients. There's not one client in our organization that has done more in real estate than what I have. And we have lots of fucking clients. So, I'm not saying I wouldn't work with clients who have done more than me, but I'm just saying, like, yeah, I'm just teaching people what I've done. So I'm leading the way and then being like, hey, well, this works, this doesn't work. This is, what I've learned from this is the mistake I've made. So make sure we don't do that.
Do you own any other asset classes like crypto or shares?
No, man, I haven't ever bought crypto. I actually have this story, which I've told before. When I was younger, I don't know, I was maybe like 20 or something. It was one Christmas and I saw all this shit online. It was before I was in business. I saw all this stuff online about crypto and blah, 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 blah. You know how the story goes. And I was like, fuck yeah, I need to get in on this. So I tried to set up a CoinSpot account or whatever the account was that I needed to set up. I'd never set it up before. And then I was going to transfer 10 grand, which at the time was a lot of money to me. 10 grand across from my personal account into this thing and buy this coin that I literally knew zero about, like absolutely nothing. Because I'd read some story that the coin was going to quadruple within blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I couldn't work out how to do it. I got frustrated and I was like, oh, fuck this. I can't be bothered. Fortunately, I couldn't get it done because like I looked maybe 2 weeks later and that coin had like fucking plummeted. I would have lost all my money, and 10 grand to me would be like $1 million to me now. So it was a learning, and I got from that learning, never investing in something that you don't understand. And I know almost nothing about the blockchain and cryptocurrency, and I'm okay with that. In terms of shares or anything like that, like I look at shares as you're investing in a business, and why would I invest in anyone else's business other than my own? So I invest in my own business heavily. I obviously invest heavily in real estate. And that's probably about it. I've just gotten into cattle. I bought a big property, 1,500 acre property, which we're running a wedding venue from, but that takes up 1% of the property. So I've got 70 head of cattle. That's fun. So yeah, that's going to be a work in progress. I'm a farmer.
What are the tax benefits of property investing for business owners?
I mean, they're not too dissimilar from PAYG employee. So depending on how you have things structured, there are different tax consequences or benefits. The big thing, obviously, is being able to claim your expenses of that property. The difference between what a property brings you in rental income and what a property costs you, that gap is what we call negative gearing in Australia. So it's that negative portion of, let's hypothetically say from a cash flow point of view, very similar to a business. If you have a business for the first 2 or 3 years and it's actually making a cash loss, you obviously can claim those losses, right? When you make a profit in the future, you'll offset them. Negative gearing in property works very, very similar. It's you make a cash loss on paper. You can then claim that cash loss against your taxable income and decrease your taxable income and obviously claim the deduction on that. Depreciation, obviously, it's not property or it's not only just for property. Depreciation is in any asset that you can depreciate, whether it's a vehicle for your business, whether it's equipment for your business. Property you can depreciate as well. And I guess, you've got capital gains in the future. Again, you get, depending on how you own the property, you get different capital gains tax discounts. And I guess as a business owner, there's some just more creative things you can do outside of just being a standard employee. So if you're a business owner, you can generally use other structures much more than a normal PAYG employee can use. So, if you have a trading entity, for example, your proprietary limited company, it's making a lot of money, it's making a lot of profit. Obviously, if it stays within that company, it's called retained earnings, and earnings inside of a proprietary limited, a standard proprietary limited, 25 cents to the dollar. Obviously, if you push that out of a trading entity into your personal name, you will pay the top-up tax on that to whatever your taxable income is. So it's a not very tax effective. It's a very inefficient way, to pull money out of your business. Or if you loan it out of your business to a director, you have to pay Division 7A interest. Whereas you could, for example, have another entity, which is a holding co. You could push money from your trading entity into a holding company. It would stay within the company tax environment at 25 cents in the dollar, which is the lowest tax environment in Australia for a standard person. And then you can use the money, which is you haven't paid tax on, so then go buy property, for example. And there's different tax implications inside of the holding company for owning that property in there. So there's a lot of really, really cool stuff you can do. And if you have a really strong business, it makes it a lot easier to do that.
Let's just assume that a company is doing extremely well. A business owner is clearing more than enough profits to start getting into property. Mm-hmm. Should they go for their first investment property for residential or commercial?
Generally residential, I say. Commercial is a incredible asset class. We're sitting in a commercial building there. There's lots of them around us here in Brisbane. And generally they provide much more cash flow than a residential asset does. But they're much harder to be able to use the equity or the capital out of to then go buy more property. So if you want to grow your wealth through property and you want to build a big portfolio, it is generally much slower to do that with commercial, unless your business is, spitting out millions and millions of dollars year on year. So you're generating deposit after deposit after deposit within your business, which is not most businesses. So you generally will start with residential assets. Let's say you've got 200 grand in your business, which you don't need as, essentially retained earnings. You could use that money to go buy a property for $1 million, put 200 down as a deposit. So you've got debt of 800,000. That property grows from 1 to 1.2 to $1.4 million. Instead of then using more cash from your business to go buy more property, you then just use the equity that is in the property to then go buy more property. And once you've got a lot of residential assets, every year the market might move by 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10%, whatever it is. And you're just generating more and more capital. And then eventually you don't need more capital because your business, just like your business, right? When it gets to a point where it's generating significant amount of profit, there comes to a point where you're like, what the fuck am I going to do with this money? Which is not the problem for most people, but it happens. I've got lots of clients who run fucking big businesses and they have a lot of cash and they don't know what to do with it. So once your portfolio starts giving you that from an equity point of view, that's when you can start pushing it into commercial, because you just purely invest in the commercial for the cash flow. It will grow in value, but it will be slower. It's not like you're going to be able to go and get a commercial asset revalued every 6 or 12 months to pull the equity out of. It generally is a much slower cycle. And then you just continue to use your residential assets to leverage you into commercial assets.
Makes sense. Should a business owner buy the commercial space that he's currently renting for his business?
I don't know. It's a hard one, right? Because I'll use my business as an example. We moved into a new office. I owned our old office building in Sydney. I sold that because we were growing out of it and I was going to develop it and turn it into a big house, and it was just too much of a pain in the ass. So I sold it down, got into a new premises that was about 4 times the size of our old premises. Now, if I would have bought that premises, which I was thinking about doing. Not the premises that we moved into, it wasn't for sale, but I was thinking about buying another office. We've grown out of it already. So it's like, it doesn't serve a purpose then, right? Because you're in it right now, but is it going to be big enough for you for the next 36 months? Are you going to grow out of it? Then just going to become a normal asset that you're not going to be occupying? So I think it's case by case. If you're a business that's not growing very fast, or maybe you're stabilized and you don't want to grow anymore, and you don't need to continue to think about, fuck, where am I going to keep putting all these people? Then potentially. Or it might be like a part of your business. A lot of like trade style of businesses, or businesses in e-commerce and stuff like that, they have packaging facilities or warehouses, which they will just continue to take more and more space. So you potentially could buy your warehouses because you're going to need them forever, and they will always serve a purpose. But I think it is case by case. I think if you're just looking at commercial, it'd be generally just purely for investment. Like we just bought a big office building in Newcastle, for example, for our Newcastle team. It's 750 odd square meters in turn. It's huge. We don't need all that space in Newcastle. So we're taking one floor, we're leasing out the other two, and we'll eventually grow into the rest of that building. And it's an incredible asset. So that is cool, but most people wouldn't have the capacity to go and buy a building of that scale and then only occupy a certain point and rent out the rest. But if you can go buy something much bigger than what you need and you can grow into it, then that can have some utility.
In terms of doing that approach for a business, I've seen that you could get the asset, the commercial space under a trust, and then that trust will basically rent it out to your business. Mm-hmm. Some people are currently talking as well about self-managed superfund to do the same. In your opinion, what's best and why?
Self-managed super is just a holding vehicle, right? Like whether you invest inside of your trust, or you're inside of a holding company, or inside a self-managed super, they're essentially just holding vehicles. Obviously, self-managed super fund has its own legislation, it has its own rules, it has its own laws, and it's the most tax efficient vehicle out of all three of those things that I just mentioned. But you can't use or touch the asset base if you wanted to use it for personal reasons until you retire, right? So I'm 28 now, it's 30 years away. Doesn't mean you shouldn't invest through it. It just means that you need to be cautious about what you buy in it. Can't leverage off assets inside of super. There's a lot of things you can and can't do. Best to speak to an accountant about that understands self-managed super. And most people wouldn't have enough capital inside of their super, especially business owners, because they generally don't pay themselves, much super. I've seen it time and time again. But it can be, it can be advantageous. But it's going to be the same sort of thought process as what I mentioned before. It's like whether you buy it through a super, whether you buy it through a trust, whether you buy it through a company, if you're buying something for yourself, it's not about what vehicle you buy it inside of. From my point of view, it's like, will it serve the purpose for a long enough time horizon, or should you just purely go buy an investment and continue to lease your space if you're going to continue to move into new premises?
What would you say to the people that are buying a homeowner-occupied premise because they're thinking of, I will get the capital gains tax discount in 12 months. When you leave, when you have a homeowner-occupied, you actually have no tax to pay for your property. So gains, what would you say to those people in comparison to the people that are buying investment properties?
Yeah, I've got pretty strong views on this, right? Like and my views are purely formed from my perception of the world. So for 99% of people, home is great, right? Most people aren't good with money. That's just the reality. Most people are pretty shit savers. Most people waste and spend a lot of money. And the good thing about buying an owner-occupier home is it is a forced savings account. They have to pay the bank every single month before they pay themselves. That's just the reality. So for most people, an owner-occupier home serves its purpose purely, if I'm thinking about it from an investment point of view, purely because it allows them to not waste their money, or it forces them not to waste their money on other shit. That's why I like an owner-occupier home. And you see it time and time again. Most people don't make extra contributions into their super. Most people don't do much investing outside of their home. And when most people retire, they retire purely on selling down their owner-occupier home and living off whatever money that's made. So it works. If you're a little bit more sophisticated, and I guess you understand money, what you understand is when you earn a lot of money, your biggest line item on your personal P&L is tax. There's nothing else that takes up 47% of your income. Nothing. And if there is, there's an issue. So if something takes up 47%, if you get your P&L and you go, okay, this is my revenue or income, number one, tax, 47% of everything you earn. Like that is the thing that you want to be most efficient on, right? It'd be like looking at a business P&L and saying, okay, well, fucking rent takes up 50% of our revenue. Do we need to be renting for this much? Can we get a smaller space? Can we get some, like you want to be most efficient with that, because if you can free up, say 50% of that 50%, that's a lot of cash. So I think if people are earning a lot of money and they're paying a lot of tax, then going to buy an owner-occupier property and paying for that owner-occupier property with after-tax income is just the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. Yes, you do get a capital gains tax discount when you sell. Amazing. But you need to get to the point of sale. Like selling a property in 20 years' time doesn't help you right now. Like cash flow is the thing that keeps everything afloat in the day-to-day. And most people are completely cash strapped. I see so many people's personal P&Ls and cash positions, and they're not that great. So I know that most people don't have a lot of money. I know most people struggle with money. And I know that most people own an owner-occupier property, and between tax and their mortgage takes up 75 to 80% of their gross income, which is just fucking stupid. So I believe that most people should rent, which is again a line item on a P&L, personal P&L. That's how I think about everything. I think about everything as a P&L. Rent, bang. It's all right for a business to rent, but why is it not okay for a person to rent? Same shit, right? Rent, and then you should invest. And if you happen to invest in property as opposed to another asset class, like I said, any money that you pay out for that property, you get a tax deduction on. And if you earn the most amount of money, being 190 plus, or you pay the most amount of tax, in Australia at 190,000 plus on income, any dollar you pay out, because you're paying 47 cents of the dollar on, you get a 47% tax deduction on that dollar. So it's super advantageous.
It's pretty crazy, some of the excuses that people make in terms of why renting is not good for them. Oh, I can get kicked out. Oh, they don't have that feeling of like they own the place, which they don't really, the bank owns it.
Yeah, I explained this the other day, right? So it's just a belief thing, right? About our whole life, I learned this from a guy, his name is Derek Sivers. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of him before. Incredible guy. He wrote this book, Useful, Not True. And I was at a Taki Moore mastermind the start of this year, and he spoke. Anyway, the premise of his book, Useful, Not True, and the premise of his whole talk was everyone walks around in life, and when I say everyone, I mean every single person on this earth, walks around in life with beliefs that form their view of the world, and that they believe that their view of the world is factually true, when it's not. It's a belief, right? So this is exactly the same. There is only a few things in this world that are factually true. Gravity is a factual thing. That wall being white, that's factual. This floor being here, factual. Lots of other things, not factual. What someone thinks about that person is not the truth. That's just their belief of that. So the whole renting versus owning thing, again, it's a belief. So with renting, instead of paying the bank interest, which is you renting the debt off the bank, you are then paying a landlord rent, which is the same as paying the bank interest. It's exactly the same thing. Just a belief we have because we can tell someone, hey, I own that property. Stupid. And that's why most people are poor. And when I say poor, no one
cares.
Yeah, no one cares about anything other than themselves, right? Yeah. So I think it's funny. And a lot of people are very, very short-sighted as well. So, they think about the here and now. They think about, oh yeah, I buy this house. I can tell everyone. I earn more money. I can buy a better house. People think better of me. I drive a better car. No one gives a fuck. The funny thing is, if we saw a Lamborghini or a Ferrari drive past here right now, I'd look at it and I'd go, fuck yeah, that's mad. What do you think about when you see a Lamborghini or Ferrari? You think about the person who's driving it or the car?
I think I get inspired.
But by what? The car itself?
No, it's because someone was capable of getting a car that 99.9% of people will never be able to.
But do you think about the person inside the car?
I think about the person inside
You
the
do?
car. Yeah.
You're unique. Most people, when they see a car like that drive past, they don't think about the person. They think about the car. But when we're in the car, driving the car, we think all these people looking at us are thinking about us.
Yeah.
When they're not thinking about us, they're thinking about the car.
Yeah.
Everyone's thinking about the car and themselves. No one's thinking about, fuck, I'm so... Like, people think they're cool, right?
Yeah.
And I have a cool car. And it's so interesting when you drive it, everyone's looking and like you have this thing of like, fuck yeah, people are looking at me.
You get a kick out of it.
They're not looking at you. They're looking at your car. They don't give a fuck about you.
Yeah.
And that's life.
Yeah.
You know? People are so worried about what everyone else is thinking about them when the reality is no one is thinking about them. Everyone is thinking about themselves.
Absolutely.
It's so funny.
Graham Holm, which you are familiar with, has a bit of a different approach to your methodology, right? He's helping people pay their mortgage within 10 years. How is that much different to your system? And can you explain why?
So I think what Graham does from a mortgage point of view is great. Like at the end of the day, it's not revolutionary. He teaches people to pay their mortgage off faster. The way that he teaches people to pay their mortgage off faster is to budget and not spend money on shit. And he uses a thing called an unlimited redraw facility, which is essentially like you get paid, you put 100% of what you get paid on top of your mortgage, and then you pull the money out as you need it to go and do whatever the fuck you want to do, right? So you're essentially paying down your mortgage first, then you're living off that because interest is calculated daily and then you pay it in arrears. So if, like this month, for example, your mortgage repayment falls on the 30th of the month, what you're paying on the 30th of the month is the previous month's interest every single day, day 1, day 2, day 2. So every day I don't know what time it calculates it, but every single day, whatever's owing on the mortgage is what interest you pay. Next day, same thing. So if you can pay your mortgage off with 10 grand of salary, for example, and then by the end of the month, pull out 8 of that salary because you essentially need it to live on, you essentially haven't paid interest on nearly the 10 grand less of money the whole month. So that's awesome. There's also a thing called an offset account. He's got this awesome marketing thing, which is fuck the banks, I think he says, which, makes the bank the enemy. When you understand marketing, you understand what these people do. So it's great. I think it's genius. It's got a very successful business. And he helps everyday punters, which is awesome. That's not my clientele. So he helps everyday people and it works for everyday people. There's a catch though, right? Like, he pays down your mortgage, which is great. Most people buy owner-occupier homes because they want something to live in. They're emotional about it. And I would say, 80%, if I was to take a stab in the dark, of people who buy an owner-occupier home do quite well out of it because they bought it for personal reasons. I want to live here. I want to live near the school. I like this. I like that. And most people who are of a good demographic live in good areas, so they do well over the long term. But then they go on and say, hey, okay, we're decreasing your debt. Amazing. Now let's use the equity that we've created by decreasing the debt to go buy investment properties. And that's when it gets bad because the investment properties that they buy are not the investment properties that the person would buy if they were going to live in something. They go buy some horseshit high density apartment like we're looking at here or some, regional house and land thing. And I just don't agree with that at all. I think Graham's a great guy, but I just don't agree with that strategy whatsoever. So, in short, what he does is works, paying off the owner-occupier property. Great, because it's non-deductible debt, but you don't have to pay off any non-deductible debt if you never buy an owner-occupier property in the first place. So why the fuck do you bother? That's my argument.
Hey, real quick, if you're a founder, CEO, or business owner looking to build a personal brand, become a thought leader in your space, and attract premium leads, our viral video podcast systems can help. Book a call with the link in the show notes to speak with my viral podcast team today. Now back to the episode. It'll be really interesting to have the both of you just...
We've done a podcast before together.
Have you?
Yeah. I hit him up to come on my podcast, but he's super busy, obviously. We did our podcast a few years ago. Which everyone has a slightly different system, right? My system and I guess the strategy that I've created is purely based off my life experience, what works for me and what I've seen not work in the past. And I've seen so many more people not do well out of off the plan, out of brand new houses, out of all of this garbage than they've done well. Now, I'm not saying everyone doesn't do well out of it. I'm just saying the people that I've seen, if I was to put 100 people and say, How many of you guys have invested in off-the-plan apartments? 100 put their hands up. And I say, how many of you have made serious money? Maybe 10% will put their hand up. So I invest the same way Warren Buffett invests. And I'm not saying I'm anywhere near Warren Buffett, but I purely think about the way to make sure you make the most amount of money is just to purely make sure you don't lose money. Because if you never lose money, you're just slowly building, and eventually you'll have a big win. So if I use that example of 100 people, 90% of them have never made money out of off the plan, 10% have, okay? Would I invest in it because 10% have made money, or would I not invest in it because 90% have not made money? I'm just going to play the game of probability. 90% says you're not going to make money. So why would you try and back the 10%, right? It's like betting on a horse in the Melbourne Cup. Like, it doesn't make sense. So I just go, and I've seen it. My parents did it. They invested in the off-the-plan apartment. They invested in the house and land package, and they didn't do well out of it. They lost money, and they got sold into it by someone like Graham Hall. Okay, that's my belief. So, okay, that doesn't work. Cool. The regional thing. Again, I put shit on all these regional towns and regional properties. Same thing. Put 100 people in a room. Not 100 people in a room over the COVID period, right? Because it's a disillusioned period of time, because any fucking idiot made money during that time, and I'm including me. You know, I'm one of those fucking idiots. I made money. 100 people in a room pre-COVID. How many people have made money in Rockhampton, in Cairns, in Perth, in fucking Darwin, in all these places? How many people out of 100? 10%, 15%. That's the reality. I speak to these people. I'm not some guy who speaks on fucking Instagram and Facebook and I don't do the thing. So if I know that to be a fact, again, play the game of probability. What is going to give me the highest probability of not making $1 million, just simply not losing money? Okay, what would you going to invest in? 90% of people not making money, 10% making money. Probably the 90, right? Don't do it. And then I look at like, okay, blue chip is what I call the real estate we invest in. Good locations, never cheap. You never ever buy a property in the locations we buy in and go, fuck, that was a bargain. Because lots of people want to buy it. So it's never cheap. Always lots of people at auctions. Long periods of time of consistent long-term growth. Okay? Go and survey 100 people. How many people have lost money? 10%. How many people have made money? 90%. So where would you invest? That's purely my model. It's the game of probability. Where do I have the lowest probability of losing money? And it's just investing in areas that have always made money. And I'm not saying these other areas won't make money. I'm just saying, why would I gamble?
I am very similar of that approach. I like having the odds in my favor as much as possible. I don't like to play games to lose. I like to win. Right? I told a couple people this week that I was gonna do a podcast with you, and the two of them said, "What? That dickhead?" And I was like, "Wait, what? Jack? Are we talking about the same guy? Because he seems awesome to me." So they didn't have anything good to say.
That's fine. Then, lots of people don't, unfortunately.
on my research, I came across a Reddit thread. And when you're on Reddit, you probably are doing very well for someone to be talking about you. And this is what it says. Someone asked, what does anyone know about Jack Henderson? Someone says, absolute scam artist. He's been on a Four Corners documentary for scamming people. This explains a lot of why people don't like him. He makes clients sign non-disparagement agreements.
That's true.
That should tell you everything. He's a great marketing for his niche. I don't agree with his investment methodology.
True. Yeah, there's lots of other great things about there if you Google me.
What would you respond to those people?
Mate, I'm happy for them. I'm happy. If like, the reality is, lots of people don't like me, totally fine. Lots of people like me, also totally fine. The reason those things are online is because a few years ago, there was like a smear campaign pegged against me and my old business partner. And fortunately for them, it gained some legs. It got onto Four Corners and they try to smear my business. It cost me millions of dollars. Lots of these people had a little win. They were like, yeah, he's a fuckwit, you know, like everything we've thought about him, we've just been reinforced as the truth. And again, like that's fine. The comment in there, like, I don't agree with his investment strategy. That's because that person's poor and they can't invest in what I invest in. And again, that's totally fine. Like, you can't argue with what I do. Unfortunately, it's unarguable, if that's even a word. Tell me how what I do you can't agree with. I don't get it. I invest in the best locations in Australia. I just spat on your microphone, sorry. I invest in the best locations in Australia and I buy the best assets there are in Australia. What can you not agree with that? It's because he can't afford to do it or she can't afford to do it. That's why they don't agree, which is fine. But yeah, I mean, fuck, if you got caught up with all the things that, negative things people don't like about you. Who are the people who said that was an idiot? What do they do?
Which ones?
The people who you asked, what do they do?
Just podcasters, I would say. Yeah.
They're podcasters?
Yeah.
They do podcasts?
Yes.
They make a lot of money?
They're doing fine.
Do they make a lot of money?
I'm not gonna disclose. Not gonna disclose.
Look, the thing is, man, it doesn't actually matter.
Right?
Right?
I found it very surprising because it's just one of those things, going back to the example of the car, right? What do people say when they look at a car like that? They look at the car, but also they judge the person straight away.
They don't even know, yeah, that's the thing. They don't know who I am, like
Exactly.
Like when you just asked me about Graham. Graham as a person, he's a great person. He's got a very, very successful business. And I just don't agree with the investment philosophy, not because I don't think he's a great guy. He's a great guy. People don't have to see eye to eye on everything, and I'm totally fine with that. And like I said, my belief is not around Graham as a person. It's purely around my life experience. That's why I don't agree with what he does. And I explained, my parents lost money in that sphere, so why would I like that? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
These people have never met me, have never spoken to me, know nothing about me, have read some story online, and they've made an assumption. Remember I told you about that Derek Sivers book, Beliefs?
Yep.
Is it useful or true?
Absolutely.
People have no idea about that story. That story was false. Fair Trading done a full investigation into my business and into my business partner. I'll read you the thing here. Dear Mr. Henderson, New South Wales Fair Trading responsible for administering on March 27, 2023, ABC Four Corners program aired The Agents of Influence, blah, 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 blah. Concerns were raised about whatever the fuck it was. It says, Fair Trading undertook an inquiry into the concerns raised. The company, with the assistance of its principal officers and legal advisors, actively cooperated with the investigation. The company provided Fair Trading with a comprehensive suite of documents and information which addresses all relationships with the group of companies. Here we go. Fair Trading acknowledges that the documents provided now satisfies the requirements of S47 when referring clients to professional services to nullify any perception of breaches. And then it says... Anyway, that's the letter there. It's basically just fucking clears us of everything. So anyway, that's what I mean. Like, these people have no idea.
Tell me something. When you were going through that must have been very difficult.
Yeah, man. It was it was a challenging time. It was the first time I'd ever faced real adversity. Like, I've had lots of people put shit on me. I put myself out there, man. Like, I have millions and millions of people see my content every month. So like, how can I fucking not expect some people not to like me? But yeah, it was challenging. It was challenging because it's like your livelihood, right? It's like if that, ended up going another direction, for example, that's your livelihood. Your whole business is gone because of some spastic. And my missus she had breast cancer at the time. So we're going through that. And, again, I didn't make it public, but you just like, life happens. But those are the things that give you the little fire in the belly. And when you get through them, it's good. It's good. And again, like you asked me before, what drives you? There's an element of those. I don't even know who those people are. There's the Reddit people or the people online, because none of those people would ever say anything to you in the street. Never, because people don't like confrontation. They hide behind some little whatever it is username. But the usernames and those types of comments are the exact thing now. That on the days where I'm like, oh fuck, I don't feel like doing this. That's the stuff where you're like, I can't wait to show whoever these people are. That's probably petty, but it's true. It drives you.
When you knew there was going to be an investigation and that you were gonna have to deal with this challenge, what was going through your mind?
It went on for such a long time. Like before it went in March, it went to TV. I think started hitting us up in maybe October, November the year before. So it was like a long time. And I just kept on telling him to fuck off. I was like, dude, I don't want to talk to you guys. Sort it out yourself. And then eventually went to air. I was on the front page of the Newcastle Herald like 5 times or something. It was challenging. I didn't really think all that much about it before, to be honest, because I'm so busy on day-to-day basis. I'm like, oh yes, some guy wants to fucking do a story, see ya. But after, it's all the perception of the marketplace, right? And when you're successful, more people want to see you lose than want to see you win. That's just the unfortunate reality. So there's a lot of people out there who look at me and look at people like me, and it makes them upset about their own life. That's the unfortunate truth, you know, like you see it time and time again with the successful people. People just don't like them because the success of that person reminds them of how terrible their life is. So they want to see that person fall because it makes them feel better. And it's shit, man, because they're like they band together because there's way more bums in the world than there are successful people, and they band together and they want to take a lot of successful people down. So I think it's a prime example is Donald Trump in this most recent election. I have an unbiased political view. I don't know anything about politics, right? But Trump is Trump. Kamala is Kamala. Barack Obama is Barack Obama. Whatever it is. They're individuals serving a purpose in the world. But like the things they were trying to do to Trump to be able to tear him down, of stuff that had nothing to do with politics. It's just like, they just simply don't like Donald Trump because he's doing things that they're not. Like the man's a 70-year-old guy who's worth billions and billions of dollars, who's had so much success through life. He's become the fucking, the president of the US twice. What's not to be inspired about that guy? It's like, what the fuck?
At that point, having your business under investigation, your partner has cancer.
Yeah.
You have all this negativity going around.
Interest rates went from 2% to 6.5%. That wasn't fun.
Did you ever thought, fuck, I won't be able to make it out of this?
Not at all, man. Fuck. Not at all. I thought I always had like a worst case scenario. I'm like, oh, what's the worst case? Kind of scale the business down. I'll just have to pivot and change directions and then start to grow again. I had plenty of those thoughts for sure, but it wasn't like I'm not going to be able to do it. You just get going, mate. Like, fuck, our business now that was in March of 23. Our business now would be 600% bigger than it was 18 months ago from a revenue point of view.
What's the biggest month you have had in business?
2 mil. It was a couple of months ago. Last month it was our biggest ever month. So yeah, just over 2 mil.
What does it take to make $2 million months?
Lots of people knowing who you are, having a good service or a good product, having a great team, and having a big old set of balls. Not, like I was telling you before, we spend $5,000 a day on Facebook advertising. Which there's lots of people who spend lots more money. Don't get me wrong. But we're in a service-based business, which is pretty niche. $5,000's a lot. Like, we would be one of the top spenders in our industry. And the thing with Facebook advertising, if people have ever done it before, is you spend the money before you get anything in return, right? So you've just got to hope and pray that it works. So I'm outlaying $150,000, $200,000 a month. That's just on ad spend alone, plus the sales team you need to field all the calls. Like, it's big bickies. So you need that. And back then we would have been doing, in March of last year, we probably would have been doing $200,000 or $300,000 a month.
That is insane. Such a crazy growth you have had. How do you see it? Because this is something that I was explaining to someone that started doing Facebook ads recently. Yeah. And they're just getting in their head because they're going to spend like just under $100 a day. I was like, dude, get ready, because there's never a point, and I would love to hear from you spending $5,000 a day on ads alone. And just to give you context on that, one of my mentors and a partner in a part of my business, his business spends $150,000 a day on ads. 150. Not in Australia. It's that you can't spend that sort of money in Australia because the market's too small, but that's in the US. It's like
There's levels, bro.
levels to the game.
There's levels.
Does it still get it in your mind like, fuck, we're spending $5,000 a day on ads?
No, because you scale to that point, right? You don't just turn on ads one day and go, hey, there's $5,000, $5,000. You scale to that point. So yeah, I mean, we scaled from 0 to 500 a day, 500 to 1,000, back to 500, 500 to 1,500. Like it's just finding a system that works. But dude, there's a reason Facebook or Meta, have built many billion-dollar companies through their advertising platform, and it's because it works. If you are good at creative and you have a good offer, it fucking works. Like I've just opened a wedding venue. I bought a property I was talking to you about, and man, like I've got no qualms in knowing that thing is not going to be like within 6 months. That'll be fully booked for 2 years, like 100% guaranteed. Not because I'm the man who's going to book it out. It's because Facebook ads work. And in a business like that, you've got no competition. There's no other wedding venue that runs paid ads in our segment of the market. And they're easy to run. You've got no competition, which means your CPLs are very low. And it's a great
if you get those two things that you said right, there's absolutely no way you won't be able to make money with Facebook ads, which is the creative and having a solid knockout offer or an irresistible offer.
Creative's the most important thing from my point of view. Having good creative, and when you're spending, whatever you can spend in e-commerce, you can spend much more than us because you have a larger addressable market. I was with some e-commerce guys at a lunch the other day, coming up to Black Friday, and they'll be spending somewhere between 50 to 100 grand a day for like that 3-week period of Black Friday. We could not physically spend that in Australia. There's just not the marketplace for our offer. So yeah, once you have a really good offer, and you just need to continue to update your creative because it'll burn pretty quickly when you're spending big money and people are seeing it 5, 10, 15, 20 times. You need to constantly be updating your creative. And you need to do, from my point of view, what works for us is like creative that's natural to me. So I'm naturally, charismatic. I'm pretty good at talking on camera, and I have like a bit of a flary personality and brand. So we do our ads that are on that. Like Sabri Subi, for example, his ads are just natural to how he operates. Alex Hormozi's new ad, same thing. It's him, so it works.
How many creatives are you doing a month?
For ads? We test a lot. So yesterday we shot a heap of ads, and essentially the way that we do ads now is we have the body of the ad, which generally doesn't change. We have the CTA of the ad, which generally doesn't change. And we have the hook to the ad, which is the thing that changes constantly. So we've shot bodies and CTAs that we know work. And we just constantly are re-editing and putting new hooks on those videos, which is the first 30 seconds or the 15 to 30 seconds of the ad that you watch, that's the new part that gets shot. The body and the CTA really don't change all that much. So we just continue to shoot new hooks, and like we might have shot maybe 20 yesterday, like of different front end hooks.
Which gives you a lot of different variations.
Yeah, that'll last probably 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to do it again.
How does organic fit on your current customer acquisition system?
Probably 50% of all of our clients come through organic content. Now, wasn't like that for the first 5 years I was creating content, obviously.
Yeah.
So the content that we do organically feeds the paid stuff and vice versa. Paid works much better when you have an organic brand as well. So it's super, super important.
Absolutely. And that's one thing as well that you start realizing when you do both correctly is that they both help each other, and your paid marketing will convert better as well if you're implementing a solid organic strategy. What is the current content system that you use in order to generate this content?
We have a full internal team. My first ever hire was a videographer. Before I had an EA, before I had any other team members, I had a videographer from day dot because I knew how important it was.
Yeah.
And that was 5 or so years ago. So yeah, we have a full studio in the office. I record content every single day that I'm in the office. And when I'm not in the office, I shoot organic stuff on my phone to TikTok and Instagram. YouTube, we've just started now doing long form YouTube. So 1 long form every week plus all the shorts. And yeah, man, that's just like we found now. I think we found our niche that works for me, which is like I just purely talk about stuff that I've done for clients, and I fully put my personality in everything. So
You're very
That
unique
work.
in the market, and I resonate a lot with the content, the way you do it, and you
Mm.
have very witty and funny ways of approaching certain things, like the shitholes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love I love those segments.
Yeah, they're funny. They're funny. I haven't done one for a little
Yeah,
while. But yeah, they work, right?
yeah,
But eventually that'll get old. People are like, oh, fuck, another one of these videos.
yeah,
So you've always got to be trying new things, doing... That's just something, an idea I come up with. It's like, oh, fuck, that'd be funny.
yeah.
And it
How
worked.
how much are you posting weekly right now?
We probably do 4 to 5 to the grid every single day on Instagram, plus my stories. I do a lot of Q&As. Do 2 posts a day on LinkedIn to the grid. Don't really do anything on Facebook other than paid ads. We do 1 long form to YouTube plus reels every day. Oh, yeah, it's pretty substantial.
What is your goal building your personal brand?
It just drives everything. Like, it's the only thing that makes you stand out from everyone else these days, right? Like, personally, I think gone are the days where you can build a business that is hidden away in sight. Like,
That's a dinosaur.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of businesses that have done really, really well and you will never know they exist, right? But it's much harder these days to be able to do it. It doesn't mean they need to be founder-led from like a content point of view, but content needs to be a big part of what they do. Obviously, Adrian Portelli is the prime example of that with LMCT. But you even think about people like Steak, for example, like Ed Craven, who's a founder of Steak. You wouldn't know Ed exists, but he's been like that brand. That's obviously they've got the online casino style model. That business has been built purely from a content base. They've got people like Drake, for example, that promote it. So he's the face of it as opposed to founder led. But I just know the bigger my brand gets, that was another thing that come off the back of that ABC thing. That all of those mainstream media channels are a dying breed. And I can't wait till they die.
Yeah.
And I know that the bigger your brand is, the less impact those people have. So that was a big thing. You said to me before, wow, your brand's really grown. After that happened, I was like, I'm quadrupling down on brand. You look at people like Patrick Bet-David, for example. He would have as much influence, if not more, than a lot of the mainstream media these days. Joe Rogan. Donald Trump, I reckon that was a big influence as to why
President just has been made through podcasting. He just went on a podcast tour.
One of the reasons,
the
right?
perception,
And he knows, like, he's not a fucking idiot, Donald Trump. He knows that that's where people are influenced these days. They're not influenced through your mainstream channels anymore. So the bigger your brand, the more people who know who you are, the more credibility you have in whatever niche that you are in. It's hard to compete and it's hard to catch up too. Like, it's a pay-to-play model.
Compounds.
It's a pay-to-play model now. It's very hard to grow a brand organically these days. When I say organically, it's like just posting to the grid, right? Like, you can grow, don't get me wrong. You can have a few clips that get a few millions of views and you acquire a lot of followers off them. But how hard is it to get a video that does millions of views? It's fucking hard. It's very hard. And I don't care what anyone says, you might have a different view of me, but there's no system or like, some content bangs, some content doesn't. It's hard to know what the actual consumer wants. So like, I spend about $1,000 a day acquiring Instagram followers. That's on top of our paid ads. Like anything that does well organically, I'm pushing to acquire followers. And as the business grows more and more and more, I'll be spending more and more and more to acquire followers. So it's hard for someone who's starting today to be able to catch me and get as much reach as me, and while I'm going hard. So you need to you need to play that long game.
The part that I would probably disagree with is that virality definitely has elements that you can replicate, right?
Sure.
From things that get attention and things that are proven to work in a specific market, and you can have your own spin and little things that I think I may have seen some videos of you as well doing reaction videos.
For sure.
Is a really good, just one of those little hacks that is easy to just hijack.
Because you're hijacking off the virality. But I guess the caveat to that is when they go viral, you're not appealing to your demographic anyway. So like,
yes,
the video, I've done a few of those viral things. Like I did a Grant Cardone one that got a few million views. I did, who else did I do? Anyway, I did a few of those and they got millions of views and I acquired some followers off it. But then you read the comments, bro, they're not my fucking customers.
That's exactly the problem. That's why you don't want to be reacting to anything, right? And
Grant
even in the
Cardone's real
content,
estate,
yes.
right? Like he's real estate focused.
Yeah.
And I've reacted to a lot of stuff that is purely real estate focused, but they never do as well. So like I've reacted to a lot of real estate focused stuff in Australia that might get a couple of 100,000 views, which is still viral for Australia.
Yeah.
But unless you're in like a niche which is just purely about the masses, then it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's hard. I think Hormozy, I'm in his mastermind, and called VAM, and I was in the US probably like a month or so ago, and I sat with his head of brand, Caleb, who is ex Gary V, and he said all they focus on now, because they went through the thing, right? It was like they were like, okay, more eyeballs is better, because if 70% of the more eyeballs are not the right customers, at least we'll acquire 30% of people that are. But they were wrong in that assumption, because they did get more eyeballs, but every other metric they said dropped. Their book sales dropped, their inquiries through their website for businesses to be invested in dropped. So they had all of the other leading metrics like views, likes, comments, all that shit was increased, but the metrics that matter, which is the money metrics,
The results, in the back end.
the decreased. So they've pivoted away. So all they focus on now is content that converts, and all of their metrics have never been better. But their views, comments,
Have
likes,
gone down.
decreased.
Yeah.
So we're very much about the same thing now.
Yeah.
Content that converts.
Absolutely. And that's exactly, even for us and what we do for clients, is like, yes, it's cool to get 1 million views plus, but ultimately
It's vanity.
Yeah, exactly. Would you rather get 10 million views and maybe just generate 10% conversions of making sure that your business is growing and you're seeing exactly the kind of revenue that you want to see in the back end, but you're only getting maybe 10,000 views, but 10,000 quality views.
10,000 of the right views. That's right.
Yeah. Absolutely. What's the biggest difference between making 7 and 8 figures?
The founder. Yeah, like that's the difference. When I was 7 figures, it was me. I wasn't the best leader. I didn't have the right skills. Now I've grown. And what follows your own growth is the money. So that's the difference. And if you want to be a 9-figure founder, it doesn't just happen by chance.
What makes an 8-figure founder?
What makes an 8-figure founder? Well, I can just talk about what's made me. And it is like an unparalleled focus on the things that matter. Sales and marketing, that's all I focus on. It is having an offer that works and doubling down on that. Hormozy's thing, do more of what's working and do it better instead of trying new. People get something that works and like, oh great, that works, let's try something new. Milk the lemon for whatever's in there. Leadership, it's like by far the most important thing. When I say leadership, it's like being an inspiring leader, having difficult conversations, knowing your shit, focusing on what matters. For example, I had a team meeting yesterday, a leadership meeting. Someone in the leadership meeting said, hey, can we fix our email signatures? I just don't think they look professional enough. And I said, sorry? Oh, can we fix the email signatures? I've seen the real estate agents' signatures, they look great. I said, real estate signatures aren't going to make us the next 10 million. So no, we don't. That's saying how they are. Next. It's like, that's the reality. Like lots of people get caught up in that little shit. Oh, let's redesign the website. Oh, let's change that. Oh, let's fucking do this. It's like, it doesn't move the needle. Don't focus on it. And it's continuing to reinvest. We spoke about ads before. When something's working, don't just stick with $1,000 or $2,000 a day. Just fucking push it until you can't push it anymore.
How much do you currently invest on yourself in terms of masterminds, education, self-development?
As much as I can. Yeah. As much as I can. I only do stuff though that's relevant now to me. Like, like Hormozy was 50 grand to go and do that. What else? Taki Moore's stuff. Ben Handel is one of my coaches. I got an advisory board with a developer on there who's developed over 2,500, 3,000 apartments. The guy who just sold his business for 180. Ben Handler is on there. He's a 8-figure digital entrepreneur. There, I mean, a lot, a lot. But it's all relative to what you earn, right? But I've always done that. First ever thing I did was bought the lunch for $1,500 with Chris Gray. $1,500 to me when I was earning 80 or 90 grand a year is a lot of dough. Most people wouldn't do that. I joined a mastermind when I was still in the mining industry at $1,000 a month or $900 a month with Ben Handler. And I was around all these people in my industry who were also crushing it. And I still hadn't even joined the industry, like to immerse like in the learning. But yeah, now I just am very specific with the stuff that I invest in as opposed to being broad. It's just like, what do I need to learn right now that will move me to? So the reason I went to Hormozy and have joined VAM is because I really focus now on the lifetime value of our customers and what it costs to acquire that customer and how I can decrease the CAC and increase the LTV. And he's the master of that. Service-based business, very similar to us. So I want to juice that for everything I possibly can and then move on to whatever I need to do next.
Absolutely. If you're not investing in yourself, now it's crazy to me when I hear someone that is currently not investing in some level of mastermind or coach that is going to help and get that 0.5% that is going to take you to the next level.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think it just needs to be relevant. From what I've found, it's like relevance to that point in time.
Yes.
You know, it's like expire that coach or expire that learning and then find the next person. Because if you're with the same coach forever, unless that coach is fucking done everything.
Yeah, at some point you're gonna have to move forward, and the knowledge, like you said, that's what I found as well, specificity. And it's not that I don't go into a coaching or a mastermind or anything these days anymore thinking how much am I gonna learn, because what I found is I just need to learn one thing that helps me get to the next level.
The first Hormozy day we did, it was like a 2-day thing in Vegas. Oh, mate, it's like, fuck, it's game changer. And it was like a lot of the stuff we took away from it wasn't even from what they said. It was just paying attention to how they did things. And I was like, light bulb, you know? Yeah. It's crazy.
How much are your companies going to make this year?
This year being financial year?
Financial year.
We'll do 25 pretty comfortably. I would say on a rolling monthly average from January next year, like we'll start cracking $3 to $4 million a month, I'd say.
What
education launches very soon on the front end. That'll probably add another $1-ish million a month to revenue as it like starts to scale. Asset management, the building company's like really scaling at the moment. Obviously the advocacy company is continuing to scale. So everything, and then we've got internal finance now launching as well, January 1. So,
at what point did it get really life-changing money for you?
Oh, dude, life-changing money was when I left mining. I remember the first day I did $100,000. I was like, fuck, I just made more in one day than I made in a whole year. You know, like the first year, our first full year in business, I had a team of 4 or 5, and we did 3.1, I think, in revenue. No. We did 155 transactions in the eastern suburbs, and our average fee would have been like 30 to 40 grand. I think it was like 3.1 million revenue. And almost zero expenses. I wasn't doing any paid ads. I had a small office. I had low staff numbers. I had lower personal overheads. I'm like, dude, that's fucking crazy money. It's more than CEOs making the major corporations. So like that was, but following year it was fucked. I lost money. So, you know, like that year of the Four Corners thing, we lost money that year. Like when I say lost money, like a P&L said negative.
Yeah.
So like it swings and roundabouts, you know, like, and that was depressing. It was like I worked so hard and made no money. And then fortunately this year it's a different story.
This section is called This or That. So
this or that.
You just have
choose
to
one or the other.
This or the other. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Sushi or steak?
Steak.
Expert or jack of all trades?
Expert.
Product or service business?
Interesting. I'm in service, right? I'm curious around product though. But service, yeah.
CEO or founder?
Founder.
Instagram or TikTok?
Interesting. Currently, Instagram. 8 months ago, TikTok.
Instagram or YouTube?
Instagram, for me.
Photos or videos?
Videos.
Short form or long form video content?
What is classified as long form? How many minutes?
5 minutes up.
I do a lot of Instagram content that is not short form. So like most of my videos, if you watch them, are like 3 to 5 minutes long.
Let's say 10 minutes of them.
So long for if 10 minutes, I do way more short form, but like I do lots of 3 to 5 minute stuff. So it's not like your typical like 30 to 60 second reel. Most of my stuff is very detailed and it's longer. So I'm mid form.
Newsletter or podcasting?
Podcasting.
Organic or paid marketing?
Organic.
Building a talent or hiring a talent?
Hiring.
A talent at a high price tag or multiple cheap C talent?
High price tag.
Property investing or shares?
Property.
Commercial or residential?
For me now, it is commercial because I've built the asset base. For most people, residential.
Owner-occupied or investment property?
Investment.
Property investing or crypto?
Property.
Property investing or buying businesses?
Property.
Building a business or buying a business?
Building.
Passion 6-figure business or stressful 8-figure business?
Passion 8-figure business. Because it's fucking stressful at 6 figures, I can tell you. No, it's no different. You just add some zeros to your problems.
Sales or marketing?
Marketing.
And the most important one, flamingo or eagle?
Ooh, flamingo, of course.
I'm curious to hear, at the point that you're in your business, has it gotten any easier?
Nah, not at all. I've been very stressed this week. I've got like a big real estate transaction settling today. And again, I got a lot of money in the bank in comparison to the majority of people. But the money that is required to do things is also a lot more. For me to go and find 100 grand today, it's a click of a button. For me to go and find a few $1 million today, a little bit harder, but like when you are at a lower level, you don't require millions of dollars because you don't have problems that are that expensive. But when you start to grow, everything just adds more zeros, right? So it's just like everything exacerbates. When you earn 200 grand a year and you need to go find 20 grand, that's fucking a decent amount of money when you're on 200 grand a year, right? It's a problem. When you're doing 20 million a year and you need to go find 2 million, it's the same thing. It's just one extra zero on each of the numbers. So 2 extra zeros. So, yeah, it's the same stress. Like it actually hasn't changed at all. I was just as stressed as I was growing from 0 to $1 million that I am from 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20. It's the same shit. It's just the other things you used to worry about, you don't worry about anymore. I don't worry about paying my electricity bill or my rent or those kind of things. But when you hire, we hired I think 20 people this month. Times minimum salary is about 100 grand. That's a lot of fucking dough. Yeah, so.
What's your biggest problem right now?
Biggest problem right now is scaling my time. It's unfortunately I've only got 24 hours in a day, and obviously as a founder-led company, you're the face, right? People want to deal with Jack Henderson. So that's an issue, which we're working through. What else is an issue? Obviously a lot more people now. So having the right team is very important.
What's your biggest problem outside of business?
Not being able to just be happy, Not being able to just be like, I'm not going to do anything today. I'm going to spend time with my partner, or I can't do that. Always got to be doing something. I struggle having conversation with people without being on my phone. Like, it's that constant pursuit.
Should you aim to just be happy?
I don't know. I think it's how people are wired, So if I was wired just to be happy, I probably wouldn't be here. So it's a constant battle. But that's like outside of business, my constant stress and problem is like personal relationships. You don't spend enough time with me. You don't care about me. My mum and dad, you never call me. You're always too busy. That's an issue.
What don't you like about Jack?
It's never being content. It doesn't just, it's in all areas of my life. I go to a restaurant. I don't like the food. It's cost me $1,500 for a dinner. You get a car. Drive a McLaren. It's not a center. I do $2 million a month. Mine are doing $5 million a month. I got a $35 million portfolio. Why isn't it 100? It's like a disease of high performance, right? Like you always want it.
What is the best thing about Jack?
I really care about the people who care about me. You know, if you're in my inner circle, there was not much I wouldn't do. So I love like the 4 values of our company is loyalty, resourcefulness, dedication / commitment, and selflessness. They're the 4 things I care about the most. People who, if I tell them to go do something or I want something, I don't need people to help me. You work it out. It's a skill. Obviously dedication. Like when you say you're going to do something, you do it. You're committed to whatever you say you're going to do. Obviously loyalty is pretty self-explanatory. Like it's very, very, very hard to find people who are genuinely loyal to the cause and to, you know, not just themselves, but then that ties into the other thing, which is selflessness. It's like not everything needs to be about you. So yeah, if you're in that circle, it's a pretty good life.
I love that you said that word because that's what I told every single person of my team since day one. The thing that I care the most about above anything else is loyalty. I need to know that I can trust you. I need to know that when we're in the middle of the battlefield and all odds are against us and shit is hitting the fan, that you're going to stick with us and that I can trust you, that you have my back because I'm pushing here to get everyone and everything to the next level already.
It's very true, man. It's very true. It's all in all areas of your life, right? It's not just business. It's personal. It's having people like that you don't need a lot of people, but like 2, 3, 4 people that you can talk to about things that you wouldn't talk to other people about. So I think that's super important. I have that, which I'm fortunate.
What would you say are the 3 most important lessons you can pass on to any entrepreneur trying to build an 8-figure business as fast as possible?
It's not linear. It's not a linear path. For me, anyway. It's not like you go from 1 million to 3 million to 6 million to 10 to 15. It doesn't work like that. You go from 1 to 3 to 4 to 3 to 4 to 3. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're constantly solving for a new problem. So like I had this perception when I started business, which is like go from 1 to 2. Okay. And the next year my goal is to go from 2 to 4. And you don't do it. You're like, why didn't that happen? So it's like not a linear path. Things generally take longer than what you think they're going to take. The second thing would be like become good at branding and marketing, because that's something that stays with you forever. So it compounds as you get bigger. It's been one of the keys for us. And the third thing is you're only one hire away from doubling your business. Like, I'm not good at a lot of things, but I got a general manager now who is ex-global CEO of Abbey Road Institute, which is, mega company. And he's very good. I've now got, someone who understands people much better than I do in people and culture. I've got someone who runs my sales team now. Like all of those little things, like that's what allows you to scale, because I just now have to focus the majority of my time on the things that I'm actually good at. The hiring process, and that's not a new thing, right? You hear that all the time, but it's like actually getting those people, putting them in the seats, and you're like, wow,
What's the worst piece of advice you have ever received?
The most consistent wrong advice that I have received is don't do that. That's not a good idea. If you constantly listen to the don't do that, you never get anywhere, especially if you're someone like me. It's like the thing that allows you to get somewhere is not the fact that anyone else needs to believe in it. It's just the fact that you believe in it, and then you make things that happen. So yeah, that's the worst piece of advice that you will constantly, and I have constantly received, is don't do that. I don't know if you should do that. Do something, do this. But that's just a reflection of the person that you're asking, not necessarily your ability to do the thing.
What's the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Best piece of advice is, getting that first bit of real estate, for sure. That was from my parents. So without that, I wouldn't be here, that's for sure. Probably still be in construction somewhere.
Jack, you're an absolute legend. It has been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Where can people find you, inquire about your services, learn more about what you do?
Thank you, brother. Jack C. Henderson on all platforms. Mate, great podcast, great questions. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, let us know. Subscribe on YouTube, comment. I have nothing to sell you, nothing to ask from you other than share the podcast with any other founder, entrepreneur, business owner that might find this helpful so that we can continue to get legends like Jack. I will see you on the next episode. All links are down below. Good vibes. Hey legends, my goal with Founders Playbook is to help 1 million entrepreneurs build successful personal brands and businesses so that they can increase their impact and profits. You can support the mission by simply sharing the podcast with other founders and entrepreneurs. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and follow us on social media. Let's get to work.